Okay, so I've kind of figured what I'm going to do now. This PCB can more or less fit in this region underneath where the main buttons lie. See in here. It's not too clear, but when you dismantle yours, you'll see them. Which means now all of the buttons will be located near the PCB, so I don't need them to go through this rotating hub mechanism. So what I'm going to do is mount the PCB here, reroute all the wires to go straight into it, and then all I have to do is put through the rotating hub mechanism the wires from the actual joystick, and that'll be far simpler. And it'll mean most of your build will be on this big bit on the bottom, and relatively stationary, so once you've glued it all down and it fits, it'll be fairly solid. It's taken me a little bit of time, but I've finally modified the Super Nintendo style controller PCB. You can see here that I've had to route out 2 huge holes in it, and I've cut the corners. It's quite brittle, so it just snapped quite easily. I've drawn little marks on the PCB, and I've taken photos because I'm going to have to bridge some of these with some wire, because I've basically cut through the tracking. And just to show you how that fits in, oh yeah, also I chopped the USB wire off it because seeing as I'm soldering loads of other wires, it was just getting in my way while I was working on it. So what I'm going to do, I've got the base here. It now fits in nicely into that same footprint, and you can see I've routed out these corners because this piece has to go in. And the fact that now that all sits in there so nicely means that when the bits go on the top, it should all fit together as expected. So really all that's left for me now is actually just to solder the wires in the appropriate place. So it's looking good so far. Oh yeah, by the way, underneath the big main button, 3 more of those contact switches. So we'll just be poking that wire through, and that'll be the main button. It's getting exciting now. You can see I've actually added now new ribbon cable to some of these older things because they weren't really long enough, and I've tidied up some of the existing ribbon cables, tinned the ends. This is the one from the main button. These are the ones from the start, stop menu buttons at the bottom, and the rest are from these 4 at the top. So all I need to do now is slot my PCB in here. I've already tinned the contacts. You can see I've put blobs of solder where I want the things to connect to, and I'm just going to hook all of these up, and then these 4 here will be reserved for up, down, left, right, and I'm going to add a separate cable to these and route it through the hub, and I'm going to do the wiring then for the joystick side in the actual joystick half, and then leave this half alone. Okay, so it's a little while later. You can see I've got the PCB now here. It's all wired up. I couldn't find any 5-core cable to go to the joystick, so I found a 4, and I've got a single earth wire here. I'm just going to put this through some heat shrink sleeve, and I'm going to just chop these a bit shorter and heat shrink them to the end of this wire, and that should be it. I left the USB cable on here. I removed the purple cable for now. As you can see here, the joystick now is all connected. I've put some heat shrink over the interconnects. I've put the PCB in here and screwed it all up, and you can see underneath a bit of sellotape. I've added tape around on top of the board. I should have used some Kapton tape, but I didn't have any, just because this does move and you don't want it catching on anything. So the tape acts as a little bit like a bearing. I'm going to put this all back together now and plug it into the PC, and let's see if it works. So we've got Street Fighter running in the background. I've got the joystick configured. All the directions and buttons, everything registered. You're running on a CPS game, which isn't really optimal. This is kind of a layout more optimal for the Neo Geo because it's got the 4 buttons here. However, let's put in some credits and have a go at Street Fighter. And if I manage to do some Hadoken moves and the uppercut thing, then I think we're pretty much there, because those moves are pretty hard to do. And I normally play Street Fighter on a pad. Oh no, not Ryu. Oh, there we go. Oh, you can. There we go. You saw I did the... Come on, get a Hadoken out now. Getting caned. Yes! I never claimed to be great at this game, but... Okay, so we're going to try another game here. We're going to try Blazing Star. I'm just going to put some coins in here. I've selected this one as the credit button and this big old one as the start bar. Seems fine, it's absolutely great. Surprisingly, it's not a micro switched button set, but they're really good. Quite convincing as an arcade controller. Yeah, you can really, if you can hear that, that's me really bashing the buttons. I'll just zoom out so you can see. If I was to conclude this mod, and the 2 hours it's taken me to put it together, I would say it's definitely worth doing. Surprisingly, this joystick's really responsive. You've got 3 settings technically internally. You can decide how sensitive you want it. I've left it at the maximum sensitivity, but maybe I'd recommend using the other 2/3 of the range because it is a little bit sensitive at that level. Setting these up for Neo Geo games is great. I mean, you can really bash these on the desk and they actually work really well. It's just a very good kind of arcade experience. I like this button to be the old start button because in Neo Geo games you always need to continue and then just use coin, start and select at the bottom. Well, sorry, coin and select, this is start now. For CPS games it's not so good if you've playing games like Street Fighter where you've got 6 buttons because really you don't have enough buttons. So you can kind of assign Street Fighter buttons to it. It's not so good. The moves, I could get Hadokens and Aryukens and all of those things out in Street Fighter, so it works well enough. Now the only decision I have to do now, if currently I've got it with this USB lead on the end so that I can plug it into PCs and Raspberry Pis and things like that, but I'm actually going to be doing a mod on a vtech console, turning that into a whole arcade Raspberry Pi arcade system. So what I might do is actually put the original cable back on, which had a sort of PS2 style connector. So it'll be basically USB internally, so that I want that console to look stock. But you know, you let me know. Please leave a message down below and what you think I should do. Should I keep this with a USB or try to keep the vtech console mod I'm about to do looking totally legit? So please feel free to subscribe. I really appreciate your subscriptions and your comments down below, and if you want to, you can follow me on Twitter at backofficeshow. Details will be at the end of this video. There's always a little screen that pops up, and as ever, thanks for watching.